Marvel fans have noticed something really weird going on with the Fantastic Four lately, which led to this weird theory that's had comic Twitter in an uproar. Everyone gets one weird crackpot fan theory, and I think this is mine. The dead Fantastic Four theory. Spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, the current run of Ultimates, and I guess Fortnite. So comic Twitter went nuts when they noticed something odd in one of the promo images for the new Absolute Doom season of Fortnite. Because Doom had a throne made of the Thing, and that made folks realize something. This isn't the first time in recent memory that we've seen a member of a Fantastic Four come to a tragic, untimely end. All the way back in 2022's Multiverse of Madness, we saw Jim Richards getting torn into string cheese by the Scarlet Witch. Then in this year's Deadpool and Wolverine, we saw the 2005 Johnny get his skin turned inside out by Cassandra Nova. You might be asking yourself why we've seen so many Fantastic Four members get brutalized lately. Well, I've got a theory why, but we're saving it for later. I got more dead Fantastic Four members to go over first. So with the rollout of the new Absolute Doom season of Fortnite, we found out that all the Fantastic Four members have met tragic fates. Mr. Fantastic is crushed up into a ball that might still be alive, Johnny's heart is igniting Doom's fireplace, and the Thing and Invisible Woman both have been made into furniture. Talk about a lazy Susan. Beyond that, the entire castle is filled with trophies, from Magneto to Ultron, Doctor Strange, and more. The amount of Easter eggs is seriously impressive, but that's besides the point. Outside of Fortnite, the cover of Ultimates 2024 issue 4 shows Doom's mask surrounded by 4 mice with the powers of the Fantastic Four. Now this one needs a lot of context to explain. So the original Ultimate Reed Richards became the most evil version of Reed Richards, aka the Maker. The Maker took control of a baby universe and then warped it in his image, which meant going across its timeline and stopping all of the Avengers and X-Men from ever becoming Avengers or X-Men. That meant that the Fantastic Four of the new Ultimate Universe would never come into existence in the first place, and that the Reed Richards of that new universe would end up becoming Doctor Doom instead. So the new universe Reed Doctor Doom is teaming up with the new universe Ultimates to stop the old universe evil Ultimate Reed Richards, aka the Maker. If this sounds needlessly confusing, it's because it is, but I mean, that's comics for you. Now this issue doesn't actually come out until September 4th, so maybe we'll get more answers on what's up with the Rat-tastic Four and Doom Richards then. But as far as we know, the new Ultimate Universe is yet another universe with a dead Fantastic Four. Or at least, a Fantastic Four that never got to be born. But that brings us back to the core question. Fortnite, the Ultimates, Doctor Strange, Deadpool and Wolverine, why do the Fantastic Four keep getting wiped out in such awful, brutalistic ways? Well, I've got a couple of theories and a few answers, but I doubt you're gonna like them very much. There's this phenomena in Sonic the Hedgehog communities where people want to make their hedgehog half demon or half werewolf or half whatever, and then to show off how badass they are, the first thing they do is beat up Sonic. That happens in fan comics, that happened in the Archie comics, it happens in the IDW comics. It's just a common reoccurring thing. And it happens in other media too. That's why The Rock wanted Black Adam to fight Superman and not Shazam. It's posturing. It's babyface versus heel wrestling bullshit. It's why every new Null type villain has to beat up the Sentry or the Hulk to show off how much of a threat they are. It's just a very common reoccurring trope in the world of comics. And I think that's exactly what's kind of happening here. In some kind of backwards way, I think killing off a bunch of other Fantastic Fours is supposed to build up hype for the MCU Fantastic Four. Somehow, some way. I think it's like a Deadpool kills the universe kind of thing, maybe? But when is Sue gonna die? And more importantly, which Sue is gonna die? The theory goes just a little bit deeper, so indulge me here for a minute. So the Fantastic Four have this reputation or stigma of being just a little old school and outdated.
Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four.
Hello, Steven. Fantastic Four. Didn't you guys chart in the 60s?
The Fantastic Four were Marvel's first family, and that makes them Silver Age in every way imaginable. They were a part of this old school trope of science explorer type heroes, a trope that's kind of fallen to the wayside in the modern day. Hank Pym was even a part of that trope. In his first appearances and his first appearance as Ant-Man, the character wasn't exactly depicted as a superhero, he was more depicted as a super scientist. And the Fantastic Four and Ant-Man both are the last surviving remnants of that kind of old school outdated trope. But it used to be so common that there were groups like Challengers of the Unknown or even the original Doom Patrol or X-Men that would be pretty comparable to the original intent of the first few Fantastic Four issues. One way or another, the idea of a mad scientist, sci-fi explorer hero family worked its way into the cultural zeitgeist, enough to the point that it ends up in satirical parody shows like the Venture Brothers.
What could be more important than your family, Richard? science?
which is a show about a family of science explorers who have their own brutalistic and edgy version of the Fantastic Four. A take on the Four that I absolutely adore.
Take me back, Sally.
Richard, no. We've been through this.
I work too much. I realize that now. I'm learning to have more fun.
So the Fantastic Four are a little old school, right? So what's something modern for comparison's sake? Well, The Boys is probably the most popular comic show on TV right now, and it's also one of the most brutalistic and gory shows I've ever seen in my entire life. So factor in how well The Boys is doing, and then consider how well Deadpool and Wolverine did. In terms of raw numbers, these projects are both definitive winners. So here's what that means for the future of comic media. Boomer brain studio executives almost always get the wrong idea about what made a project successful after it does well. So maybe their idea to soft launch the new Fantastic Four is to have all the older ones meet brutalistic, tragic ends prior to the new ones being introduced. So maybe the vibe with the new Fantastic Four is supposed to be, this ain't your daddy's Fantastic Four. So does that mean we get Miles Teller as the movie version of Evil Reed? Will Kate Mara or Jessica Alba die in the opening to Secret Wars? Who knows, they could really do anything at this point. But I'm positive this recurring trend is not a coincidence. I know it's intentional. If nothing else, it's a Type B hypercrisis manifestation. Now, I didn't plan on making this a hypercrisis video, but indulge me here for a second. If you want to get a good idea of who's going to show up in a movie or a TV show soon, pay close attention to the comics, action figures, and video games. Sometimes they test merchandise of characters through Marvel Legends or appearances in comic books in order to gauge how popular a character is before they show up in a movie or a TV show a few years later. This happens at both Marvel and DC. There were so many characters on the Injustice 2 roster that seemed completely random when the game came out. But then you realize Dr. Fate was in Black Adam, then Blue Beetle had his own movie, and a lot of these guys were on the CW shows, so pretty much all the characters in the Injustice 2 roster ended up appearing in something else DC related soon after or within a few years of the game's release. So I think there's like an internal shortlist of characters that writers are encouraged to use, and if you just look for patterns, if you look for who's showing up more often and who isn't, you can kind of make more educated guesses on who or what will show up when and where next. You can kind of figure out who's on that shortlist. So my pattern detector is going nuts with all the dead Fantastic Four stuff. Obviously, it's some kind of backwards way to hype up the movie and hype up the new Fantastic Four. Like I said, I think the idea is this isn't your daddy's Fantastic Four. Maybe they're trying to make the MCU Fantastic Four seem cooler than what the audience is expecting, and I also think they're trying to build up FOMO in a way. There's no real telling, but there's definitely some kind of intent to the pattern. It's not just random. Other examples of this kind of thing would be the Bad Embargo, or when Marvel forced the Fantastic Four and X-Men out of the spotlight during Secret Wars, and tried to replace them with the Inhumans and the Eternals. I call these patterns Type B hypercrisis events. But we're going to save the hypercrisis discussion for another day. Now, the hypercrisis is a topic that I covered lightly in my comic commercials video, and a topic that I'll be covering heavily in my next video about the time that the Flash visited the Marvel Universe. I'd also like to thank my lovely supporters on Patreon. If you want to check out 2 of my next videos early, then you can join the Patreon or become a channel member today. For more hypercrisis theory, check out this playlist here. Feel free to berate or validate me in the comments down below. Help me keep my cognitive swimmingins in check. So with all that being said, check out another Crackpot fan theory here, and swim out.